Hello, welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got another Necron video for you today, which is where we're going to be reviewing and talking about Tomb Citadel Walls, which is a fortification. Now this of course isn't in the Necron Codex. You'll find this in the Warhammer Legends on the Forge World section when you go onto the Warhammer community page, and you'll be able to download a PDF with this datasheet. The reason we're doing this, we did a poll about a month ago asking you guys whether you wanted me to review the legend units, and 77% of you said yes. So this is actually the final one that we're going to be talking about in terms of the legends. Just a little disclaimer though, before we actually begin this review, this one is not likely going to be fielded in terms of competitive play. This is more of a narrative kind of model, so don't take this one too seriously, and you'll see why as we get through the video. Okay, so it's going to be a fortification, so you will require a fortification network, which usually will cost you a command point, but of course it will be free, because you'll get a command point back if you're using the same faction as your warlord, which you should be. So let's get on with the actual datasheet for this model. Now the model actually comes in 3 different stages. So firstly you've got a tomb ziggurat, you've got a power crucible, and then you've got 2 emplacement mounts. So I'm going to display on the screen for you now where exactly those are located on this actual fortification. So you've got the tomb ziggurat at the back, the power crucible is on the opposite side of that square tile which is at the front, then the 2 gun emplacement mounts are going to be on either side of the actual fortification. So just try to bear in mind where these are located throughout this video. So as far as the actual cost for this model, it's going to be costing you 38 power level or 760 points. It's an absolute monster in terms of its actual points cost, 760 points, and that's not even including the weapons. We'll get onto that later in the video. So there's no movement because it's a fortification, there's no weapon skill, it's not going to be fighting back. It's got ballistic skill 3+, strength 9, toughness 9, wounds 20, no attacks, leadership 10, and a 3+ save. And that's just the tomb ziggurat, that's just the back section. The power crucible has the exact same profile, 20 wounds again. And then finally got the 2 gun emplacement mounts, which have the same profile, but they're 14 wounds for each mount, which means there's going to be a combined total of 68 wounds for this fortification. The strength 9 kind of makes it look a bit better than it is because it doesn't actually fight, so therefore that strength is completely redundant. Whether it's strength 1, strength 9, it doesn't really matter. But that toughness 9 of course does give it a lot of resiliency when you combine it with those wounds. But all in all, it's going to take a lot to get rid of this thing. Now in terms of the war gear options, the gun emplacement mounts can each be equipped with one of the following. So either one of the Gorse Exterminators or one Tesla Destructor. So if you're taking any Gorse Exterminators, they're going to be 25 points per gun mount. So it could come up to 50 points if you're taking 2 of them. 48-inch range, heavy 2, strength 9, -3 AP, and the damage is 2d3. So an average of 4 damage. It's doing a little bit of work, but for 760 points, you can't really say it's doing enough. Or if you opted to go for the Tesla Destructors, you can take 2 of those, 10 points each, so that's going to be 20 of course, 36-inch range, heavy 5, that's per Destructor, strength 7, no AP, 1 damage, and of course 6 is the hit, will score 2 additional hits. So again, for 760 points plus the actual points that you're going to be paying for, you could potentially see this fortification be costing you 810 points if you're taking the 2 expensive weapons. Now you don't have to take any weapons at all, you could leave the gun mounts completely bare. These are just optional upgrades for the gun mounts if you wanted to take them. Then before we get onto the abilities, let's talk about the faction keywords. It's got the Dynasty keyword, although it is a fortification, so it's not going to gain any of the Dynasty buffs. Then each one has got the building keyword. Then there are also pieces of terrain, and we'll get onto that in the ability section because each one has its own terrain features and rules. So as for those abilities, you've got living metal to regain a lost wound at the start of the turn. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. When you're talking about 68 wounds and toughness 9, is it really going to matter if you get 1 wound back every turn? Probably not. It's then got the Eternity Gate, so in the movement phase, if the model remains stationary, which it will be because it's a fortification, then in the reinforcement step of the phase you can summon a unit in, and if it does you select a core infantry unit, that's in strategic reserves, set them up anywhere on the battlefield that's wholly within 3 inches of this fort, and not within engagement range of any enemy models. Their models that are set up in this way are counted as having moved a distance equal to their move characteristics, yada yada yada. Okay, so if you were to use this, you're going to do this with either warriors or immortals. Now, you would actually question why you do this in the first place because you can just set them up in your own deployment zone within the fortification anyway. But maybe if you wanted to protect them for a couple of turns, I don't see why you would, but if you did want to and you wanted to bring a 20-man warrior unit in, it's going to cost you 2 command points to do that because they're going to have a power rating of 12. So to bring them out from strategic reserves will be 2 CP there. Now once you've set this fortification up, each one of the actual parts of the fort has its own terrain features. So the tomb ziggurat has got the following terrain traits. So it's scalable, so only infantry, beast, swarm or fly models can be set up on the terrain feature and they can move through it, no problems. It's defensible, so infantry models can hold steady or set to defend. You gain light cover from it, so it's a +1 to your armor save. Then it's got the obscuring trait as well. Then the second part of the fort is the power crucible. So the terrain traits that this has got is unstable position, so you can't set up any models or move them through this terrain feature. It's got dense cover, so it could be a -1 to hit from range attacks. And it's obscuring again. And then the gun emplacement mounts, they're also unstable, dense cover and obscuring as well, just like the power crucible. So within different parts of the fortification, it can either have light cover or dense cover, depending on where you are. And it potentially could be obscuring. Now, it's going to be very difficult to obscure 20 warriors, but maybe if you've got immortals, for example, you can very easily hide 5 of them behind some of the features within this terrain. Then the next ability is the Ziggurat Dock. So during deployment, you can set up a Dynasty Monolith or a Dynasty Sentry Pylon model on top of the unit's Tomb Ziggurat. And if you do so, until the Monolith or Sentry Pylon moves, you're going to add 1 to the strength characteristics of all the weapons the model is equipped with. So in terms of the Monolith, all of a sudden you're going to have some Strength 10 Death Rays and some Strength 13 Particle Whips. And even the Ghost Flux Arcs are going to be Strength 6. And that Portal of Exile will be Strength 9. Everything goes up by 1. Now what's kind of funny is the Sentry Pylon is also a fortification, so you've effectively got a fortification on top of a fortification, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. I guess Necrons like their resiliency after all. So then on to the next ability, which is the Defense Field Aura. So while friendly Dynasty units are within 6 inches of the Power Crucible, which is the front part of the actual fort, then models that are within 6 inches are going to get a 5+ invulnerable save. Of course, they've got to be the same Dynasty. They're going to get a 5+ invulnerable save. So again, I'm thinking about warriors there. They're going to really benefit, and also other units such as Death Marks and stuff, things that are going to stay back, Locust Destroyers, things like that. It's then got the Resurrection Amplifier Aura. So while friendly Dynasty core units are within 6 inches of the Power Crucible model, you're going to add 1 to the reanimation protocols for that unit. Now you've got to bear in mind how the reanimation protocols actually work, because they're capped on a +1 or a -1. So you can't be using a Canoptic Reanimator on top of this, because you can only +1 to the roll. And likewise with the Orb of Eternity, you can't use that either, so you may as well just stick to a Resurrection Orb there. Then the final ability is called Wreck. Once each model in the unit is destroyed, so there's 4 there, which are all labelled as you can see in the image. On a 6, each one explodes, and any units within 9 inches suffer D6 mortal wounds. Then you simply don't remove the models, because you can't remove the models because they're actually a ginormous fort. But instead, they're going to be treated as an obstacle with the difficult ground traits, as well as exposed positions and unstable positions. So that's all the abilities for the Tomb Citadel walls. There's a couple of stratagems that you could use if you really wanted to with the weapons, depends on which weapon you took. You got the disintegration capacitors for 1 command point. Because you've got a Gorse weapon, you're not going to use this. I'm just mentioning it here because it's a Gorse weapon. But if you do hit with the unmodified 6, you're going to automatically wound the target. And of course, Malevolent Arcing for 1 command point if you're taking the Tesla option, which can bounce off of other enemy units within 6 inches of the targeted unit, and on a 4+, they'll suffer a mortal wound. Again, you're not going to use this one, but it is there if you need it. So let's get on with the summary for this fortification. Now it's toughness 9, which is pretty tanky, and it's got a combined total of 68 wounds. So this thing is very rarely going to be destroyed if you're fielding it. It's got lots of different terrain features, whether it's dense cover, light cover, obscuring. You can find all sorts of different terrain traits within this fort. It buffs pylons and monoliths, which is quite nice if you're playing with those kind of models. And you can put a fort on top of a fort, which I think is really cool. It's not every day you see something like that happening within the game. It's got a 5+ invulnerable save for units within 6 inches, and +1 to the reanimation for core units within 6 inches as well. As for the bad, it's stupidly expensive. It's between 760 points or 810 points, depending on the weapon loadouts. Now unfortunately, this is actually an out of print model, so you would need to build this kind of model yourself, or possibly find one on eBay if somebody's selling one of the old school models that you could collect in the old days from Forge World. It's not got much damage output. For 760 points minimum, 4 strength 9 shots or 10 strength 7 shots. For that price bracket is just absolutely ridiculous. You're not getting anything done with that. And the actual buffs are favouring the monoliths and the sentry pylon, which are not very favourable in terms of the actual competitive play. Now this model isn't even a competitive model anyway, but in terms of the narrative games, you need to be playing quite a large size game in order to do those kind of buffs. Again, if this is about 810 points and you're taking a monolith on top of that for another 360 odd points, and that's before you've got any other units, warriors and overlord or whatnot. So in terms of the smaller games, you're just not going to be able to field it. Because it's a fort, it doesn't gain any dynasty buffs and it can't hold any objectives. And then finally, this is only going to be available for narrative play, because it's extremely unlikely that you're going to be able to deploy this in a competitive game. Because of actual terrain that's going to be on the battlefield, there's absolutely no way you're going to get away with deploying this in your own deployment area. So before we get onto the rating, let's get the shout out done. Going to Jacob Hampshire for his comment relating to the members list analysis episode 6. and he said he'd personally swap out the Overlord for a Warden because the Silent King does all the bulk with his My Will Be Done ability, and by removing it you simply pull out of combat and then shoot, as well as restoring D3 warriors back. That's of course with the Technomancer he's also got in the list. So if you've not actually checked that video out, give it a little watch. It's quite a unique list because it's got the Silent King as well as 2 Catan shards within the list, so check that one out if you haven't already. So on to the rating today now. Of course this is not a serious video. It was a real model, but you're not going to physically use this one in a competitive game. This is purely for narrative, or just if you're a Necron collector like most of you probably are. But unfortunately for this one I'm going to have to give this a half a star. So guys, that's the video today, and that's all the legend models completely done now. There was only 3 to do. We should be back onto the more serious tactics and reviews in the following Necron video. But I thought this would be a nice change from what we usually do. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do that. We're trying to get to 5,000 subs before Christmas. We're still on par to be able to do that. And also like the video just to help the algorithm and all that stuff. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.